It was brutal. One of the most brutal presidential debates I've seen in my life, and I've been watching these things for decades. We'll play some of the clips. We're only 4 days away from Super Tuesday. Donald Trump is still in the lead. I'm Randall Terry. You're watching Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
On Wednesday, according to the press, Rubio supporters, along with some of the former Jeb supporters since he has pulled out of the race, about 200 of them, gathered in New York City for a presentation on how Marco Rubio could become the nominee at a brokered convention. How Marco Rubio, who may not win a single primary, could be the man that you have to vote for if you want to vote Republican in November of 16. And this all revolves around their ability to keep Donald Trump from getting the magic number. Now, keep that in your mind, okay? What we saw last night was Rubio and Cruz both, not just going after each other, but for the first time trying to pile on Donald Trump. Rubio, he did it. Actually had a couple of good zingers, but he didn't come off well. And I think that it ended up helping Trump, but I'm going to let you watch this clip and then you be the judge.
Well, you're the only person on the stage that's ever been fined for hiring people to work on your projects illegally. You hired some workers from Poland.
No, I'm the only one on the stage that's hired people. You haven't hired anybody.
Well, in fact, some of the people
and
he
by the way,
hired, well, but hold on.
I've hired tens of thousands of people over my job. You've hired
1,000 people
You've
from
had
another
nothing
company,
but problems
from another
with your
country.
credit cards, etc.
Let me
so
say, let me finish this
Senator,
statement. This is important.
You haven't hired one
He
person
hired
in your life.
workers from Poland, and he had to pay $1 million or so in a judgment
wrong.
for hiring.
That's wrong.
That's a fact.
Totally wrong.
Well, people can look it up. I'm sure people are Googling it right now.
I've
Look it
hired
up.
Cruz.
Trump
Excuse
Polish
me.
workers. You'll see $1 million for hiring illegal workers on one of his projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
That happened.
I've hired tens of thousands of people over my lifetime.
You could see how intense it was, how brutal it was. But here's the problem. Donald Trump is right. He is the only one on the stage who's hired people. And I think that that's part of the draw of Donald Trump. If I could be an analyst for a minute and not simply an advocate, those of you who watch this program regularly know that I believe in the hierarchy of good and evils that is established by God, all right? Whether we believe them or not, they are true. And whether we think that judgment will come really doesn't matter. It will come in God's good time. The blood of the babies crying out for judgment, it's going to be avenged. But as an analyst, if I were to step back and assess what the top 10 voter issues are facing America today, terrorism, the economy, they're always right at the top. If you want a president who can help stop the bleeding of American jobs to China or to Mexico, of the people on that stage, who would you want? And the fact that the establishment, who has an enormous vested interest in China and in Mexico, the fact that the establishment despises Trump is all the more reason for, as Peggy Noonan called them, the unprotected to go for Trump. Now, I looked up Polish workers, and sure enough, there's a story popped right up, and it was from a fact-checking organization who basically said, look, there were illegal Polish immigrants hired. Trump says he did not know that they were illegal, and I wouldn't be surprised if he never met any of them. I mean, think this through with me. You're talking about somebody who has hired tens of thousands of people, that has layer after layer of management. It's not like he's got a hard hat on and he's shaking the hands of the Polish workers and interviewing them to see if they're qualified to be on a demolition crew. That's what they were. So basically, the facts are, or appear to be, that there were Polish workers, a couple hundred of them that were brought here, that were paid under the table. Some of them say they didn't get all the money that was owed them. The lawsuit involved Trump being sued by the union, not by the workers, but by the union, because whoever his contractor was skirting the unions, and that's why they were hiring the Polish workers to get the job done cheaper. So the fact-checking organization said, Rubio, we'll give him a 50% true, 50% not true. But it's almost not the point. The point is that Rubio looked whiny, and Rubio hasn't hired anyone. And when he mocks Trump about having 4 companies that went into bankruptcy, Trump has had hundreds of companies. Okay? I filed bankruptcy. I went bankrupt. I went bankrupt because of my work. The NOW, National Organization of Women, and Planned Parenthood attorneys sued me for my pro-life work. Ultimately, they won and drove me into bankruptcy. So it happens. But the simple fact of the matter is, for American people who want a president who can be better at negotiating, be better at protecting American jobs and America's interests, who do you think they're going to vote for? I have a feeling it's Trump. Friend, we are in the middle of producing a 14-part epic television series called What Would Mohammed Do?, explaining Islam and ISIS to the West. I have a master's degree in international terrorism, and I have studied ancient Islamic texts for over a decade. And we are going to do a very paced and a very scholarly look at Muhammad's life and see the connection of his life to today's headlines. Well, we need your help on 3 levels. 1, we need help with some security measures. 2, we need help with some gear for the studio. And 3, we need help with some computers. I'm inviting you to go to the GoFundMe site that you see on the screen and watch the pilot for episode 1. You'll get a feel for what it's going to be, and I promise you, you're going to be excited. You'll be challenged, and you're going to want your friends to see it. And then after you've seen it, give what you can to help us with this project. Thank you. Politics is, at least in some ways, it's a blood sport. And remember, the word campaign prior to elections was a military term. A campaign was about a war. And we have elections so that we don't have to have wars, right? The peaceful transition of government is one of the hallmarks of the franchise, the vote, and arguably one of the most important aspects. Not the most, because if a majority votes to do something that's evil or wicked, then the majority is wrong, and those in the minority have a right to stand against them, even using force if necessary. But I digress. For those of you who say, what do you mean? Wait, well, what if you're in a community and 90% of the people vote to take your home and make you a slave? I mean, we did have a democratic process here in America where we had slaves. The slaves had the right to violently resist their slave owners and to try to become free. All right, a blood sport. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio went after Donald Trump like I have. If you add up all the other 9 debates, all right, this was the 10th debate. If you add up all the other 9 debates, the one Trump wasn't there, and you add up all the shots and the brutality and the pummeling, this one was worse than all the other ones combined. Watch this exchange between Cruz and Trump to see what I'm talking about.
In 2013, when I was leading the fight against the Gang of 8 amnesty bill, where was Donald? He was firing Dennis Rodman on Celebrity Apprentice. And indeed, if you look at the Gang of 8, one individual on this stage broke his promise to the men and women who elected him and wrote the amnesty bill. But Donald funded the Gang of 8.
I can only say this, and I've said it loud and clear, and I've said it for years, and many of these people are sitting right in the audience right now, your lobbyists and your special interests and your donors, because the audience is packed with them, and they're packed with you. I've had an amazing relationship with politicians with politicians, both Democrat, Republican, because I was a businessman. As one magazine said, he's a world-class businessman. He was friendly with everybody. I got along with everybody. You get along with nobody. You don't have one Republican. You don't have one Republican senator, and you work with them every day of your life, although you skipped a lot of time. These are minor details. But you don't have one Republican senator backing you, not one. You don't have the endorsement of one Republican senator, and you work with these people.
Senator Cruz.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed. Now, one of the things that's interesting about Donald Trump is his ability to dial things back and dial them up really quickly. I'm a public speaker. I've spoken hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times in churches and in colleges and various settings, political gatherings. And for Trump to be able to hold on when he needs to be quiet, make the point, and then when he needs to fight fire with fire, blowtorch to blowtorch, it's impressive. And I really thought that Cruz was going to draw some serious blood when this exchange started, mocking him about, firing Dennis Rodman and that you funded the members of the Gang of Eight. Trump quiets down and says, look, I've said it repeatedly. I get along with everyone. It was my job as a businessman. I gave money to Republicans. I gave money to Democrats. And the voter listening says, I get it. And the voter says, and guess what Trump is not doing? He's not taking money from any special interests. No one. That has such magnetism. Again, it's strictly on the economic side. I feel like I need to say every single segment, there is a hierarchy. The number one challenge, the number one crisis, the number one evil in this country is the killing of babies. The second is marriage, okay? That is not going to change with me, your host. But we still have to analyze why evangelicals are overwhelmingly going for Donald Trump, not their fellow evangelical, Ted Cruz. It's because of Trump's leadership skills. It's because of his poise. It's because of his intensity when he needs to be intense. And he did a jiu-jitsu rhetorical move on Ted Cruz so fast, saying, you don't get along with anybody. You could, for the first time, you could actually see just a whisker of Cruz's face flinch. Because that's a tough shot when you've got no Republican senator in the entire Senate where Ted Cruz works who is endorsing Ted Cruz. Now, if I were Ted Cruz, I would turn that right back around and say, yeah, I know that they're not endorsing me because I am not part of the establishment. The problem is he needs too many of them. He needs their help. So Cruz is stuck between a rock and a hard place. And Donald Trump, who Cruz reached out from behind that rock and hard place and popped Trump in the mouth, and Trump just jumped out and started pummeling down in the hole. I'll be right back. All right, Trump was just like beating on him. Cruz, that was a bad mistake. All right. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas referred to John Locke twice in his dissent in the Obergefell decision. John Locke is referred to as the philosopher of American liberty. He was a genius, and he not only believed in natural law, but he believed in revealed law, the Word of God, the law of God. And he is one of the two most influential philosophers on the founders of this republic. We are offering you this book, and I'm going to give you my book as well, The Sword. The Sword, the subtitle is The Blessing of Righteous Government and the Overthrow of Tyrants. It looks at what is the legitimate purpose of government and when is it our right to overthrow government like they did with the Declaration of Independence. We will send you these two books if you simply pay for the shipping and handling, $8, and then give whatever else you want. And by the way, the $8 doesn't cover our cost, but if that's all you can afford, we'll send them to you for the $8. God bless you. Who's up for round three? Round three of the boxing match last night. Again, if you missed it, we're playing clips from the Thursday night Republican debate that was hosted by CNN, moderated by Wolf Blitzer and a couple other people. It was intense. Rubio wants to be president. Cruz wants to be president. Trump wants to be president. The problem is that this entire election cycle is playing to Trump's strengths. That's the issue. People in the GOP, the ones who decide the Republican primary process, okay, they are furious. I'm a registered Republican. Our primary is coming up on Tuesday, part of Super Tuesday here in Tennessee. I have had it with the Republican establishment. And my contempt for them is not new. If you look back, we should find that video, the old red, or the pretty red dress. I was coming after the Republicans 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, because they're so treacherous and duplicitous. So that rage, that anger, that sense of I've been betrayed, it runs so deep in the Republican voter, the psyche of so many Republican voters. It doesn't matter what Trump says. Doesn't matter what he does. Doesn't matter if the clip I'm about to tell you or show you from Rubio is 100% true. But probably not. But just go ahead, watch this bludgeoning.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The second...
So cute. Such a cute soundbite.
But no, it's not a soundbite, it's a fact. Yeah, again, go online and Google it. Donald Trump, Polish workers, you'll see it. The second thing about the trade war, I don't understand, because your ties and the clothes you make is made in Mexico and in China. So you're going to be starting a trade war against your own ties and your own suits.
That's right. All right. You know what? Because
why don't you make them in America?
Their currencies.
No.
They devalue their currencies.
Well, then make them in America.
That makes it impossible. Well, you don't know anything about business. You lose on
make them in America.
Let me just tell you. They devalue their currencies. China, Mexico, everybody, Japan, with the cars. They devalue their currencies to such an extent that our businesses cannot compete with them. Our workers lose their jobs.
So you make them in China
and
in Russia.
But you wouldn't know anything about it because you're a lousy
Well, I don't know
businessman.
anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You bankrupted four companies.
You know what?
I don't know anything about
You know what?
starting a university. That was a fake university.
First of all,
a fake university.
That's called...
There are people that borrow $36,000 to go to Trump University, and they're suing him now. $36,000 to go to a university.
By the way,
that's a fake school.
And by the way,
and you know what they got? They got to take a picture with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump.
And by the way,
that's what they got for the $36,000.
I want to move on. And they actually did a very good job. But I've won most of the lawsuit.
So, again, it was... I'm a businessman. I've run small businesses over the years. I've hired people. I've had to let people go. I've had 20 people on my payroll, and I've gotten down to one person. I have a little teeny itty bitty experience in the business world. Marco Rubio doesn't, okay? When Marco Rubio said, well, make them in America, I cringed. The textile mills that used to line our horizon, almost all of them are gone, okay? Clothing that used to be made in America went south, and then it went to the Far East. First it went to Mexico, Guatemala, then it went to China, Indonesia. Look at the tags on your clothes. You find me clothing made in America. It's possible. It's very rare, but it's possible. You want a nice suit? You're going to get one from Italy. You might get one from Mexico. You possibly might get one from Canada. And I don't know, maybe Hickey Freeman or somebody makes some suits here still. It's a teeny number, okay? So the people that drove America's jobs out of this country were the wealthy who saw opportunity to have cheap labor. Protectionism used to be a good thing, all right? The unions in America, it was a good thing. It had it so that it made America so that a man could work and provide for his family, and his wife didn't have to go to work. She could stay home if she wanted and be the mom and the homemaker and the domestic engineer who ran the family home. It was something of honor. I mean, you think about this with me right now. How many women are working outside of the home that wish they weren't? How many moms, grandmas wish that they could homeschool? Wish that they worked part-time just because they wanted to. They wanted to go out and do something. Not because they had a gun to their head and they had to, because it takes two incomes just to survive. Well, there was a time not too long ago where one income could take care of the family, and a large portion of those working dads worked in manufacturing, okay? They made televisions. New York State, the New York State economy in the late 1950s, okay, when I was born, the New York State economy was the 5th largest economy in the world. The New York State economy, America was the #1 economy, but New York State by itself was the 5th largest economy in the world. They made locomotives, they made pianos, they made television sets, they made radios. They had an enormous amount of agriculture, okay? And now you drive through some of those manufacturing towns and you see huge buildings. Endicott Johnson, 10,000 employees making shoes, gone. Go up to Rochester, New York, go to Kodak Park. They literally blew up the buildings. Kodak was one of the most important businesses in America. It's still in business, but barely. And they've literally exploded the buildings, blown up the buildings to just create massive parking lots. That's because wealthy people saw an opportunity to leverage more money out of cheap labor, and they broke down the barriers. And so Smith Corona goes away, IBM goes away in Binghamton, New York. IBM, great computer manufacturing, they're all gone. All the plants are gone, okay? And people are outraged and they feel betrayed. And Trump is saying, I'm gonna make America great again. I'm gonna bring jobs back. It'll be interesting to see if he wins the election, if he's the president, how he does it. But I guarantee you, he's got more business sense than all the rest of them on the stage combined. And for those who are concerned about business and jobs, he's their man. And it doesn't matter if he filed bankruptcy 4 times or if he had a lawsuit. It doesn't matter. People who never made a mistake never made anything. And people who have been in business for a while have had things go badly. I guarantee it. How do you get good judgment? Experience. How do you get experience? Bad judgment. Friend, this TV show represents a mission. It's to be a voice of resistance to the evil in the land, but also to inspire people like you to take a stand at any level that you might be able to equip you, to inspire you, to challenge you, to give you the rhetorical ammunition that you need. But we still have to pay bills. This program, as you know if you're a regular viewer, we don't spend a lot of time raising money. We don't spend a lot of time saying, oh, you need to buy this and we're gonna run. No, we're bringing you a message, but we still have bills that we need to pay. I'm asking you, if you have been blessed by this show, to please go to our website or send a check to the address you see on the screen or call the phone number that you see on the screen and use your credit card and to give $50 or $100 or $500 just to help us meet our normal expenses. And we'll keep bringing you this hard-hitting show. The manner in which the tyrants of Rome kept the people of Rome, the plebeians, the slaves, the way they kept them happy and content at some level was bread and circuses. I've been to the Flavian Amphitheater, okay? We call it the Colosseum. I've been there many times in Rome. It's wonderful, just amazing. It's owned by the church. It is a church, by the way. Christians' blood were shed there. Martyrs died there. Untold number of gladiators died there. The games were pretty brutal, but they were all free. Did you know that? Did you know that? They were all free. Because it was the way that people could sit in the stands and scream and cheer and have something to talk about. Bread and circuses. As long as the people had bread and circuses, they weren't going to have an uprising. And the bread and circus trick has been a key part of America's demise. I'm genuinely concerned for the sake and the future of our country. I am. I'm concerned for my children. We are in trouble, and it's getting worse. And people look at someone like Ted Cruz, an outsider, a strong Christian man, Donald Trump, a forceful character. And these men make promises that they are going to turn things around. Those of us who are paying attention are anxious for someone to turn it around. We don't know what's going to happen, but friends, my advice to you is this. This is what I'm going to tell you. Pray like it all depends upon God, and fight and work like it all depends upon you. Ora et labora. Pray and work.